Show me the most unique player in the first 2 weeks of the season. We'll talk about that. And show me the money on the Pro Golf Tour. There's an app for that. Hello and welcome to AAi, the podcast on analytics and sports. I'm Phil in Los Angeles. Say hello to Ari in Chicago. Hey, Ari.
Hey, Phil. Hey, Andrew.
Andrew and Ari are the data scientists on this production. Hello, Andrew in San Diego.
Hey, Phil. Hey, Ari.
Well, guys, we lead off with the first 10 games of the baseball season, and Shohei Otani could be the top story, although so could Byron Buxton or Joe Musgrave. But let's talk about Shohei, not only him and the Angels' hot start. So, Ari, you get Shohei and what he's done offensively, and then Andrew, you get what he has done on the mound. Equally amazing, and show us the most unique player. It has to be him so far. Go ahead, Ari.
Yeah, and I was watching much of his game, but this game, it was a combination of offense and defense, things that had never been done before. But from the offense standpoint, hitting the ball 119 miles an hour, line drive off the wall at KC's Kauffman Stadium.
Pretty amazing, and within a foot or two of going out. And on the mound before that, Andrew, equally amazing.
Yeah, he topped 100 miles an hour with his fastball, which is amazing and good to see after we've been waiting for him to get back on the mound for a while.
And I hear that was in the same inning. You hit the ball over 100 miles an hour and throw it over 100 miles an hour. It's just incredible. And then he got injured later in the game, but luckily not like career ending or anything.
Well, and fellows, we could kindly debate this. Is that more amazing, or is it what Byron Buxton is clearly doing for the Twins, or the first no-hitter of the season so far?
Yeah, well, yeah, Andrew, you have the picture, so you could do the San Diego proud.
Well, I have a problem because I have sentimental ties to both of these stories. I do have the picture of Musgrave up. It's been a very long time for San Diego to get their first no-hitter in their history. It's an amazing thing. And I actually, we should talk about what Buxton is doing right now. We've been waiting for Buxton to do this since he was drafted in 2012. But I'm actually more surprised by the no-hitter just because everyone's been talking about inning limits, pitch limits. We're taking pitchers. We're going to make them go significantly more innings than they went last year. And there's some real concerns about how we're going to do that without causing injuries. And we've already seen pitchers pulled from games with no-hitters because of that fear. So I'm just really, really surprised that this happened this early in the season.
Well, then let's talk about Buxton. Ari, Andrew, to you, what's most amazing about his start so far?
Yeah, for me, it's like, well, the offensive explosion. And I remember when he was drafted, he was quite good at the time, but forecasting forward, like if you look at the percentile of all different categories, the barrel rate, like how he's the top, he's in the top 1% of players for getting, the hitting it hard, top for expected batting average, which is where you adjust for park factors and things like that, top for slugging percentage, top for expected weighted on base average, my favorite public stat, top 2% for exit velocity, and then for running as well. It's not just how hard you can hit. If you hit a ground ball to third, he's in the top 1% for sprint speed as well. So all of that diversity of offense is amazing.
Well, to follow that up, we always knew he was fast, right? The sprint speed, it doesn't surprise us at all. And we know he plays superb center field. But the one that just blows me away is the fact that he's in the top 2% of hard hit rate. That power, he had some pop, but that isn't what we expected, I think, coming into this season.
And here's an interesting point. Only two players in, since they've been recording StatCast, have both that exit velocity and sprint speed in the same season. Mind you, it's still early, but that was Mike Trout and Keon Broxton. So that's elite territory.
Wow. And living out here on the West Coast, we get to see Trout a lot. He's amazing. But that takes us back to his teammates so far. Might be the most unique, but we also, because of what Buxton has accomplished, when I hear that, I'm always curious about what did he do in the offseason? Who's he working with, or what adjustments did he make? And it's not all about who he's working with. Guys, when I worked with Stanton, I always felt like people would always ask, who's his hitting guy, as opposed to just giving him credit for, and that continues to be the case today, as opposed to just giving him credit for his career. So we give Buxton credit there too. And
well, Phil,
go ahead. Yeah.
To put it into perspective, Buxton did come into spring training camp 15 pounds heavier than he had been in the prior career. So he was clearly putting the hours in the off season to try to get stronger and better.
Well, the teams so far, overall, we talked about the Padres that are pictured over Andrew's shoulder. Padres and the Dodgers, first two teams to 8 wins in the National League. Angels 7-3, best record in the American League as we record this here on a Tuesday. The Dodgers plus 23 run differential, which is one of my favorite stats to look at. And that's tied for best so far in all the majors with surprising Cincinnati. Padres plus 20, which is next best in the National League. The Reds and the AL East leading Red Sox are pleasant stories so far after 10 games. Now, coming up tomorrow, our partner in crime, Ari, is featured on a Sport Techie virtual conference. We encourage you to tune in. You can go to social media, Google it. It's easy to find a link, and we encourage you to do that and register. You can even watch a recording of it. Ari, as you've watched things so far, one, the season, give us a nugget that you have been prepared to share tomorrow. And two, you watched the Sloan Conference last week. And let's take a look at that and give us some insight, a preview of some of the things you'll be talking about with Joe and with some of the other guys on Sport Techie.
Sure. Well, Joe Lemire does a great job on all of his webinars and articles. He does more research than just about anyone that I know. He did a feature with me and Mike Matheny with the Royals, but I'm going to be on a panel with him, Greg Kane, who's the VP of Data for Major League Baseball, and Ryan Reinsel, who's the Chief Product Officer for Baseball Cloud, which kind of will get into my Sloan conference. But yeah, we're going to be talking about how tech roadmaps. Joe did an article on how the Mets are kind of behind and need to up their technology, and you need that these days to be able to compete and win the World Series. So talking about where teams are now and all the proliferation of sensor technology, camera technology, and so on. So lively discussion, very much looking forward to it. And then the Sloan Conference, Andrew and I, about a year ago and a month, was the last time we saw each other in person. We're out in Boston. That's right when COVID was breaking out. It turns out Marriott down, the other side of town had one of the early breakouts, but amazing conference hosted by MIT, has both legends, Mark Cubans of the world, but then an A-Rod, but then it also has like newer startups and case competitions. So like some nuggets of learning, video analysis and the automation of that is huge. There are companies, or you as an individual can look at thousands of high school and college games and automatically tag in baseball how quickly are the pitches. In basketball, just from a broadcast, how many times do they dribble and what's their footwork like? And so there's a huge proliferation of that this year. In terms of baseball, seam shifted wake is one of the things that's kind of the new trend. And like I've been a major league scout, and we call it late life or late movement of a pitch. And that's what the scout said, but the physics at the time was just measuring the initial release of the ball. So the physics people were saying that doesn't really happen. There's no late life, it's an illusion. But now they realize like aerodynamic like a wing of an airplane. Since the ball's moving, it's changing the wake of the air behind the seam. So it actually could change the spin angle a little bit, but the spin rate. And that ends up being, even a couple inches at the plate of difference. That's, ground ball versus a barrel, or a swing and miss versus a barrel. So that's kind of the hot topic of du jour.
Nice. We look over your shoulder, Ari, and we see the topic for our next point of conversation. Andrew, we talk about the Masters, groundbreaking win, and it's opened the door for us to do what Ari just did, lead us right into another form of conversation about analytics.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, can we say reassuringly normal golfer? Hidecki Matsuyama is the first Asian-born Masters winner at just 29, right? He admitted being nervous all day Sunday. I mean, who wouldn't be, although they don't always admit it, despite leading for the entire round. But I mean, it's a great thing to see the diversity in golf, the international flavor in golf. Wonderful to see it coming through like this. I would like to point out that last week we did talk about the Masters, and we talked about the top few people the odds maker liked, and this was not one of them. And in fact, many of the ones they really liked did not perform as well as we may have thought.
Well, and you shared with us, and I was totally fascinated by this, a Wall Street Journal story that used the Masters as a jumping off point to look more in depth on what analytics is doing in the sport. Share some of that with us.
Yeah, absolutely. One of our favorite companies, I think we have talked about Rapsodo here from a baseball context, but they also have a very strong presence in golf. Another baseball company that we've talked about, TrackMan, also has a very strong presence in golf. There's other things like ShotLink. And the Wall Street Journal was talking about the growth of analytics in golf, which I think we've been tracking for a handful of years, but is less understood than maybe baseball analytics is understood. But Dustin Johnson uses the ShotLink app to identify and improve his focus on his mid and short range game, so from 50 to 125 feet. And we're seeing lots of golfers use this to try to change everything from the way they drive to the way they play their short game. And then interestingly, course designers and course maintainers are also using analytics to help them optimize the course, because it's expensive to water courses in a lot of places, to maintain courses. And if you have locations that are just never in play and you're tracking people, you can decide to convert that to more natural spaces and not have to spend the time maintaining that.
Well, and golf's not new to gambling or the incredible surge, but and gambling's not new to golf, but there's some information from that story that I thought was fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we get into gambling, let's finish up on the Masters, because we should talk about ratings, which is something else we've been tracking over the years. And the ratings for the Masters, we'll call them mixed. The Sunday final round did it 5.5 or about 9.5 million viewers. The good news is that's up 65% from the last Masters, but keep in mind that was an odd time for the Masters in the fall. And this was actually 15% down from the last regularly scheduled Masters 2 years ago. So stuff's improving from where it was in the fall, but it's still down from a couple years ago. Again, something we need to track. But then, yeah, converting to gambling, I don't know if anyone's going to be surprised that gambling and golf go hand in hand. I mean, most people who go out on a golf course have some money riding on it. But the thing that was interesting in talking about the gambling and talking about the growth of sports betting, what it's done in the 2 years from November of 2018, when the Supreme Court decision came down, to November of 2020, 35 billion was gambled on golf, giving a bookmaker pocket of $2.5 billion. So massive amounts of spending here.
I'm overwhelmed by that. Like you say, just about anybody who goes out and plays anything other than a charity round, and usually even a charity round, they're putting some money down. One of the things I found interesting about that story is a specific bit of advice for weekend golfers. If you're a weekend golfer, practice your 8-foot putts. Most of us weekend duffers are good from 5 foot in. And that's 8-foot putts are what the pros practice because they're really solid at about there. Love that stuff. And anytime we use numbers to give us practical advice, we're all in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Guys, this just happened today, and it's an addendum to how the state of Indiana has dominated basketball news over the last 45 days with hosting the NCAA tournament and then the Indiana High School Athletic Association boys and girls tournaments. 88-year-old Bobby Slick Leonard died today. He is Mr. Indiana Pacer, a coach and an executive, maybe Mr. ABA too, the old red, white, and blue ball. Slick and his wife Nancy were both executives with the team. Slick lately a broadcaster. Fitting that he lasted in poor health till the end of the NCAA tourney and the IHSAA championships, as friends from around the country came in town and visited him. I worked with Bobby and Nancy selling Pacer season tickets while in college. I'm grateful for the genuine manner in which they welcomed me into the office and into their home. That was a unique time. So Bobby Slick Leonard, 88 years old. Now, Andrew, you get softball news, perfection on top of perfection.
Yes. For the first time in NC2A Division I history, a pitcher pitched not just a perfect game, 21 outs, no hits, no errors, no walks, but she did it with 21 strikeouts. So we have to recognize the amazing performance of Hope Trotwin in North Texas against Arkansas Pine Bluff.
And Ari, last, Major League Baseball celebrates Jackie Robinson Day this week.
Yeah, Jackie Robinson, number 42, the race barrier, and he and his wife Rachel continue to be recognized for pioneers. Oh, and you're pointing to the photo of him behind.
Yeah.
As incredible pioneers in social change. He came along 10 years before Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and he was right on time. And by the way, he did attend close to my alma mater, which was Caltech. He played baseball at Pasadena City College. I think Phil's pointing, pretty close to his home. But yeah, we all give thanks to him and his family for all the sacrifices and leadership. And hard to believe, but 74 years ago, broke the color barrier in baseball.
Yeah, Jackie grew up here, literally down the street from where we live. He attended John Muir High School and Pasadena City College on the John Muir High School campus before going to UCLA. My wife, born and raised in this area, she went to John Muir High School as well. And we regularly spend time at Stadium 42, which is the high school field for the John Muir Mustangs. Go Stangs. So guys, wonderful to be able to talk about Jackie anytime. Good to talk about Otani, Jackie, and Matsuyama, given the pulse of the world today. Good conversation. Well, that'll do it for us for this week. Thanks for hanging out with us. It's an opportunity to get deep into the numbers, into the business of sports. I'm Phil for Ari and Andrew. Thanks for joining us on AAi, the podcast about analytics. We will see you next week.